Good morning. It's so nice to see so many of you here this morning. This is just wonderful. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Sandy Farlow. I am one of the worship associates and part of the team that brings you this morning's worship. So wherever you're with us from, whether you are online with Discord or here in the congregation, we welcome you. Our call to worship this morning is from the UUA Worship Web by Margaret Keip. As surely as we belong to the universe, we belong together. We join here to transcend the isolated self, to reconnect, to know ourselves to be at home, here on earth, under the stars, and linked with each other. So the Human Rights Initiative of North Texas has been a community partner of ours for many years. We have chosen as a congregation to support the work they do because we care about the people they serve. In the past, we have done clothing drives and cereal drives and toiletry drives and food pantry staples and grocery cards for the holidays. And this month, we are doing a diaper collection. So we are collecting diapers at Collector's Corner in Founders Hall. This is an incredibly difficult time in this country for people that have always been able to look to America for asylum from persecution in their own countries and for a place where they can build a future for their families. Although we do not have full details, we are in the shadow of another shooting by an ICE officer in Houston this last week. We grieve with his family. We have invited Shalaina Abioye, HRI's executive director, here today to give us an update about how the current administration's draconian policies have impacted the work that they are doing here in Dallas with their clients. Welcome, Shalaina.
Hi, good morning, and thank you all for inviting me once again to speak to you all today. I was asked to speak about the current climate that is affecting our work and our clients, especially during increased ICE enforcement and everything else that we're seeing in the news and hearing within the different communities. I want to begin with something that may surprise you all, but to date, no single client that we serve at HRI has been detained, which is really good news.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes. However, I do not want that fact to create a false sense of security at all, or minimize what's happening around us. The truth is, we do not fully know why some people are being targeted for detention while others are not. Perhaps having an attorney, an active case, or a different type of immigration history is what matters in some circumstances. Or perhaps some might be vulnerable because they don't have an attorney at all. But it is irresponsible of me to claim with certainty because we simply do not know how and why certain individuals are being identified and targeted. And that uncertainty in and of itself is the climate that our clients are living in. Our clients are asking us questions that we don't always have the answers to. Questions like, is it safe to go to court? Is it safe for me to attend my immigration appointment? What happens if ICE comes to my home or to my child's school? Could a policy change the trajectory of my case? For survivors of persecution and violence, that uncertainty is not abstract. Many of our clients have already lived through governments that they can't trust, systems that they can't trust. They've already been abused or persecuted or violated in some way. So when the rules seem to shift, when enforcement expands, and when frightening stories circulate in the community, the impact is real, even if they're not personally affected. And at the same time, our legal work is becoming more complicated. The people we serve are not just simply navigating paperwork. They're navigating a legal system where policies, procedures, and interpretations of the law are rapidly changing on a weekly basis. Asylum cases can now stretch 5 to 8 years. They used to be 1 or 2 years. Crime victims' cases are now taking 10 to 12 years to process. And during that time, a change in policy, a legal precedent, or enforcement changes can fundamentally change their path forward. Our attorneys and legal staff must constantly assess what has changed, what new risks exist, and how to protect clients in an increasingly complex and volatile environment. We are seeing changes that make certain forms of humanitarian protection harder to access. Recent policy shifts have created new uncertainty for asylum seekers and immigrant survivors of crime. Protections that may have once provided a clear pathway are becoming more difficult to navigate. For example, changes in asylum law have narrowed how certain claims may be evaluated, including those involving gender-based violence, gang violence, and other forms of persecution. For some people, that can mean that a legal argument available at the beginning of their case is no longer viable when they go to court. We are also seeing increased scrutiny and uncertainty affecting immigrant survivors of crimes. These are individuals who have cooperated with law enforcement after experiencing domestic violence, sexual assault, armed robbery, trafficking, or other serious crimes. The protections available to them were created in part because public safety depends on survivors being able to report crimes and assist law enforcement without fear. So the current climate doesn't simply create more work. It can change the legal landscape for a client while their case is still pending. And perhaps nowhere is that uncertainty more visible now than in the work with our children. HRI represents unaccompanied children. These are young people who came to this country without a parent or legal guardian, often experiencing abuse, abandonment, trafficking, persecution, or other serious harms. Just last week, we received alarming information about potential changes that are affecting these children nationally. There are reports that ran in the Texas Tribune that there are plans to move hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied children from across the nation into Texas to detain them. And we are hearing about broader changes to remove their access to legal representation. I want to be clear. We are still learning what all of this means, and I can't stand here today and tell you exactly how these developments will affect the children that our organization serves. But I can tell you that we are deeply concerned. A child in immigration court doesn't automatically have the same guarantee of appointed legal counsel that a person who's accused of a crime has. Imagine being a child, perhaps 2, 12, or 15 years old, trying to explain trafficking or persecution at a court hearing, potentially in a language that is not their own. And now imagine doing that alone. And legal representation for children is not simply having someone appear beside them in court. A qualified attorney may need to identify protections a child does not even know exist, gather evidence across multiple countries, work through family court proceedings, and help a child explain experiences that may be deeply traumatic. This concern is especially real for HRI because the federal system supporting legal services for unaccompanied children has already been unstable. Over the last year, we have experienced abrupt funding disruptions. Our federal contract for these children was terminated and then later reinstated. And now since December 2025, we have not been reimbursed by the government for work that we have performed. And now we are watching additional changes unfold in real time that may fundamentally reshape how children access legal representation. And we do not know what all of these latest developments mean for HRI. But when the systems supporting qualified, independent legal counsel become unstable, the people who bear the greatest risk are children, and they have no ability to navigate these systems on their own. So when people ask me how the current client is affecting HRI, one of my answers is this: it is making an already difficult job more harder and simultaneously threatening the very infrastructure that makes legal representation possible. And yet, I do not want to leave you all only with fear. HRI is still winning cases. In the last year alone, we have received 14 approvals for immigrant survivors of crime. We have continued winning asylum cases in a court system where 95% of asylum cases are denied, and that matters. It means that even in this climate, the preservation of law still matters. Evidence still matters, and preparation still matters. Having someone beside you who understands the system, who can gather evidence, who can prepare legal arguments, who can stand with you in court and make a case still matters. And I think it's important to say that because immigration is often discussed as though outcomes are inevitable. We are seeing that qualified legal representation can still change the trajectory of someone's life. We are seeing survivors receive protections created for people who have experienced serious crimes. And we are seeing asylum cases being won after years of waiting for people from Venezuela, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Syria. And we are seeing people who fled persecution receive an opportunity to remain safely in this country and rebuild their lives. Our work is becoming more necessary at the very moment that it is becoming more difficult to sustain. Our greatest challenge is making sure that qualified legal counsel remains available to the people who need it. That requires attorneys and legal professionals who can stay with the case that may last 5 or 10 years. It requires the capacity to respond when policies change. It requires philanthropic support when public funding is unstable or unreliable. It requires pro bono attorneys, community partners like you all, and people willing to stand with the immigrant community when doing so feels politically uncomfortable. And I think that is where communities like this, like yours here, matter so deeply. At HRI, every July, we recognize Life and Liberty Month as we celebrate Independence Day. We choose that language intentionally because life and liberty are among the promises we celebrate as a nation. But for the people we serve, those words are not abstract ideals. For an asylum seeker, life can mean protection from being returned to a country where they face persecution or death. For a survivor of domestic violence, trafficking, or another serious crime, liberty can mean the ability to live without an abuser using immigration status as a weapon of control. And for a child who came to this country alone, life and liberty can mean having someone stand beside them and make sure that their story is heard before a decision is made that could shape their life forever. And that is why these communities like yours help make it possible. We can refuse to allow fear to erase the humanity of our neighbors. And at HRI, our mission is grounded in the belief that human rights are not reserved for people whose stories are easy, whose cases are simple, or whose presence is politically convenient. They belong to all of us. And in this moment, our commitment is to continue standing beside our clients to protect their rights, to help them navigate an increasingly complex legal system, and make sure that as many people as possible do not face this system alone. Because the promise of life and liberty only means something if we are all willing to make it real. Thank you all for allowing me to come today.
Thank you for bearing with me this morning and being here as I'm in a different place than I usually am on Sunday mornings, but I want to lift June Lee was here. Oh, there she is, yay! And June Lee is still here. And she's been filling in on some of the piano duties today, and we want to thank her for that and lift her up for her gifts and sharing them with us today. And we'll be seeing more of her in services in the future, and we're just so thankful for that. So thank you, June. So most of us would agree that in this day and age, we live in a divided world. No one and no body politic can seem to agree on much of anything. World leaders, our own government, regular citizens like ourselves. But even beyond that, in a very innocuous way, our world is divided. We have different hemispheres, continents, countries, states and provinces, cities. We're even divided into races and genders and age and ideology. And it's all in an attempt to break down our huge population into workable parts so we can function and understand. And we even do that with our individual selves. Most of us have bought into at least a bipartite, big word, view, in that each of us is made up of two parts, two components, body and soul or spirit. And it's easier to talk about the body because we can see it, we can feel it, we can study it and break it down even further, like we have medical specialties, specific workout days in the gym, leg day, abs, arm day. And we have tests and we have games that challenge and keep our minds in shape. But talking about the soul or spirit is not as easy, is it? Most of us have been exposed to the concept of dualism, which divides our morality into good and evil, right and wrong, the little angel on one shoulder and the little devil on the other. But perhaps a more nuanced way to talk about it is to use the terms light and shadow. When something is illuminated, we see and understand it more clearly. No obstacles. We are free to move forward unencumbered. But when we're in a shadow, our eyes may play tricks on us. We can't see or understand clearly. We don't know what all's lurking there, and it's hard to navigate and move forward. Does anybody remember that old radio drama, The Shadow? Yeah, The Shadow. Yeah. You can listen to it on that old radio show channel on Sirius. Yeah, it's still on there. But anyway, the Shadow was an invisible vigilante that hunted down criminals. And he had a creepy, almost omnipresent quality. And even though he was ultimately on the side of good, you didn't know where he was lurking or when he would strike. Only the shadow knows, is what we were always told. Celebrated 20th century Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung applied the term shadow to the unconscious part of the human personality that contains our unexpressed desires, our fears, our more primal instincts, and our hidden characteristics. It's something that grows in us as we grow as individuals and forming our own value systems and molding ourselves to the expectations of society. We often view our shadow selves through a negative lens, and we learn to hide those parts of ourselves that seem contradictory to what we've come to see as good or desirable behavior. Things such as anger, selfishness, greed, or pride. But even hidden, our shadow selves are a part of us, and they always will be. As we heard from 13th century mystical poet Rumi, no matter how fast you run, your shadow keeps up. Sometimes it's even in front. And that's the risk we run by ignoring those parts of ourselves that we'd rather hide, because they can start to act on their own without permission and get ahead of us. Just like when Peter Pan's shadow got away from him and was running amok in the darling's house, skittering up the walls and even shape-shifting into Aunt Millicent's form to avoid being discovered. And as entertaining as it is to watch in a movie, it can have serious consequences in reality. When our shadow gets away from us or tries to hide, Jung says, it comes out as projection. We subconsciously notice the same traits in other people that we are trying to hide in ourselves. We may criticize these people so much that we reduce them to a single attribute, the flaw that we see so clearly in them because it's lurking in us. And when we project our own shadows onto others, we are no longer able to see them as the nuanced human beings that they are. And when that is multiplied to a populist level, we find groups of people uniting around a single cause or mission, projecting their own unconscious negativity onto a target other, another group, nation, minority, and treating them as inherently evil or inferior to avoid facing their own faults. Jung emphasized that the less aware a society is of its shadow, the more likely that shadow will dominate its behavior, and ignoring it allows it to intensify and break through violently. And we know what comes after that. The Salem witch trials, the Trail of Tears, Jim Crow laws, the Holocaust, Japanese internment camps, the Pulse nightclub killings, ICE detention centers. It's like we live in a nation whose shadow has gotten away and is running amok. And it's devastating, and it's enough to make us despondent. It's difficult how to know how to respond to this in a real way. It's very overwhelming to think about on a world scale, so perhaps we start on the personal level. In dealing with the shadow, Jung stressed the need for self-knowledge. This requires us to acknowledge our own capacity for having flaws rather than simply projecting that onto others. And when we think about it, the problem isn't the shadow itself at all, but how we perceive it. When we understand that our shadows aren't just the place where we hide undesirable traits, but also where our creativity and hidden potential live, we can work toward what Jung calls integration. We integrate our shadows when we establish a relationship with all of our parts together and seek a healthy way to express them rather than hiding them so that everything is embodied in our conscious personality. For instance, anger. Too much of it is obviously destructive. But when it's properly channeled, it can give us the ability to set healthy boundaries. It can give us the ability to end toxic relationships and resolve conflicts intelligently and help us meet our goals. Integrating the shadow is a process often called shadow work, and it's the lifelong effort to acknowledge, understand, and accept those hidden aspects of our inner world rather than suppressing them. Embracing the shadow is believed to lead to greater wholeness, maturity, and personal well-being, and it can positively impact our surrounding community as well. On August 20th, 2013, Michael Hill walked into an elementary school just outside of Atlanta, carrying an AK-47 and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. He barricaded himself in the front office, fired one shot inside of the school and several more at the police officers outside. And while the hallways emptied and teachers moved students to safety, Antoinette Tuff, the school bookkeeper, stayed. She called 911 and with the help of the operator acted as a go-between for Hill and the police. Antoinette relayed what he said about his mental illness and his fears, but also talked to him and worked to keep him safe as he surrendered. As Hill sank further into despair, Antoinette told him about her personal challenges, including the end of her marriage, her son, who had several disabilities, and her own suicide attempt. As she talked him through putting down his weapon and emptying his pockets, she said, "I just want you to know that I love you, okay? And I'm proud of you. That's a good thing that you're giving up. And don't worry about it. We all go through something in life, and you're going to be okay." The police apprehended him without incident, and all 800 young students and their teachers went home unharmed. Rather than reducing Hill, the 20-year-old gunman, to a single flaw that needed to be snuffed out, Antoinette saw a nuanced and hurting human being. Instead of meeting violence with violence, she embraced the shadows before her and within herself. Had she not risked looking past the shadows around her toward healing rather than destruction, the outcome would have been very different. According to Jung, our shadows hold the key to uncovering our hidden genius, being more creative, building confidence, creating healthy relationships, and achieving a deeper sense of meaning. We integrate it into our full selves through concrete actions and movement, even the smallest of steps. As Rumi says, that shadow has been serving you. What hurts you blesses you. Darkness is your candle. Your boundaries are your quest. You must have shadow and light source, both. Shadow and light source working together to produce healthy humans as well as a healthy society and healthy world. One of the best expressions, I think, that we have that calls for communal participation and action is all together now. We've heard it in live performances when we're all supposed to sing together, or games when we're all supposed to cheer together, or any other occasion when we need to come together as a unit. So when working to unmask our shadows in healthy ways, we can give ourselves a little all together now, so that what was once a fragmented spirit can be joined. Maybe not all the way healed, maybe not all the way perfect, but all the way present and contributing what we can. Facing and embracing ourselves honestly in our entirety so that we can rise up as a healthy society, all together now. Thank you, Sandy, for being here and shepherding us through this morning. Thank you, Shalaina, for your message and reports on the great work of HRI and kind of where we all stand and the questions we have. Go in peace, all together now, with your shadow and light. And may the quality of our lives be our benediction and a blessing to all whom we touch.